Trump incites mob was the headline in today's New York Times. The Washington Post, meanwhile, comes in with Trump mob storms Capitol. And that pretty much captures how it went here yesterday in the waning days of President Trump's term. As the House and Senate were inside counting electoral votes, thousands of supporters of the president smashed their way into the building behind me, forcing lawmakers into shelter and pretty much having their way with the Capitol building until law enforcement could retake it. 4 people died, including one who was shot by Capitol Police. And I do not say the following lightly. President Trump inspired this violence through his false claims of election fraud, including at a rally here yesterday. In a statement this morning, he is promising a, quote, orderly transition. However, he continues to falsely claim the election was stolen. And CBS News has learned some members of his cabinet have discussed invoking the 25th Amendment to remove him from office. Chris Van Cleve was at the Capitol yesterday, and this morning he is about 14 blocks up from my location on Pennsylvania Avenue, between the White House and the Capitol building where I'm standing. Chris, good morning to you. You were covering this from early to late. What's the scene there now?
Tony, there is a bitter breeze this morning and an icy quiet. Now, that's very different than the chilling scenes we saw yesterday as the Capitol, one of the symbols of American democracy, essentially came under attack as tens of thousands of Trump supporters descended upon it, egged on by the president and his baseless claims of election fraud, as those supporters of the president tried to bring their message directly to Congress.
We're willing to risk our lives!
In extraordinary hours of chaos in the Capitol, angry supporters of President Trump breached the branch of government set to put the final seal on his November election loss.
Stand in recess until the call of the chair.
Both houses of Congress were in session as violent protesters smashed and bashed their way in, ripping off heavily fortified doors and climbing through windows. Vice President Pence and all 100 senators were whisked to safety as members of the mob pushed back police, clashing in the Capitol, armed with anything they could find. Then entering an inner sanctum of the U.S. government, not open to the public since before the pandemic, posing for pictures on the abandoned Senate dais, and with feet on a desk in the office of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, leaving this note: "We will not back down."
Everybody stay down! Get down!
Huddled in the House chamber, members of Congress hid anywhere they could.
Shots are being fired inside the Capitol chamber.
Checked to make sure the doors that were near me were locked. I checked them. I started to leave the chamber and started to hear pop, pop, pop.
Everybody down!
New York Congressman Tom Suozzi captured the chaos on his cell phone.
Was evacuated from the chambers. These are people who would have been detained.
I saw dozens of Capitol Police with their weapons drawn, guns trained on the door.
Armed officers held off an angry mob behind this barricaded door from reaching the House floor. When a woman tried to climb through a window, police fired. Air Force veteran Ashley Babbitt, wrapped in a Trump flag, fell to the floor and later died. Just a day earlier, Babbitt tweeted, "Nothing will stop us." 3 others died of medical emergencies on the Capitol grounds. Outside, hundreds scaled the scaffolding set up for President-elect Biden's inauguration and unfurled Trump flags. The assault on the Capitol started only about an hour after President Trump urged supporters to march to the Capitol at his Save America rally.
You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Eventually, tactical teams repelled the rioters from the Capitol, though only dozens were arrested.
You got into the Capitol.
I was on the front line.
Boyd Camper told us he made it to the Capitol Rotunda.
We're going to take this damn place. If you haven't heard, it's called the Insurrection Act, and we, the people, are ready.
Those images are just still unbelievable. Now, the bomb squad was called to the Republican National Committee headquarters, which isn't very far from the Capitol yesterday, because 2 devices that looked to be pipe bombs were found outside the building. Also nearby was a vehicle with ammunition, firearms, and apparent bomb-making material. materials. Now, the FBI has launched a website. They are asking people to send pictures and video as they try to find the people responsible for the violence yesterday. And, Tony, it is hard to think about a protest in Washington. I've covered so many of these. There are big questions here. Where was the police presence earlier in the day? And, you know, 4 people lost their lives protesting what was essentially a procedural process inside the Capitol. It was not really lawmaking, anything but process. Tony?
It's typically a formality, and we will get to those questions later in the show. Chris Van Cleave for us as Dawn breaks over his shoulder there.